good evening, and yet again, good evening, everyone. You already know who it is, but I don't mind giving you a slight reminder. It's your best friend, your good Judy, your next door neighbor, your niece, your nephew, your cousin, your great auntie, and I have recently accepted the title of Gunkle. Honey, my name is Norman J. Liverpool IV. I'm the owner and founder of Over the Top Living, and I am so excited that you're joining another edition of What's the LGBT? So first, I just listen. I want to just say thank you for tuning in, and I'm going to tell you why. When we originally started this Wednesday series back in March, it was called Quarantini Time, and it was a place for us to connect through the quarantine. And it has evolved into this platform, which I am so happy to share with all of my special guests on a weekly basis. So I want to thank not only my special guests, but all of you for tuning in week after week after week to get this weekly dose of fabulosity that we serve up. I really quickly want to talk to you about the masterclass that I did. So the Confidence Unlocked masterclass was amazing. We'll just say it like that. And so, because of the response that I've received surrounding it, I've added an additional masterclass, which will be Saturday, November 21st from 11 to 1. This is for you if you're an LGBTQ person who wants to own your shit, walk in next level confidence, stand out and shine, and unleash your unicorn power. Registration will begin on November 1st, and I am so excited to share that space with you. Also, don't forget I do offer the hot seat coaching packages which allows you to work with me one-on-one to find your voice, choose your impact, and share your story. I'd invite you to book an exploration call with me to see if working together is a good fit. You can reach the Over the Top Living office at 702 826 1299, or simply DM me or email me at norman at overthetop.living.com. So, my disclaimer that I say every week, y'all, the views and opinions expressed by the guests of What's the LGBT are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of Over the Top Living, What's the LGBT, or Norman J. Liverpool IV as a brand. Tonight's sponsor is LIE International. Liberate, innovate, and elevate. Please join me and LIE International on November 14th for the Mind, Body, and Business Expo. I am going to be one of the keynote speakers, and I am so excited to talk about how the things that we have been taught about ourselves subconsciously or consciously block us from living in our authenticity. And so I am so excited to partner with LIE International on November 14th. This particular organization is collecting items for children who are currently in foster care. So all of the information on how to donate is on this flyer, which will be also posted in the comment section after the show. So, honey, I know all of y'all seen it, honey. This has come to the part of the show where we talk about the gag. Baby, Pope Francis expressed support for same-sex civil unions in remarks he made in a documentary that premiered on Wednesday, a significant break from his predecessors that staked out new ground for the church in its recognition of gay people. The remarks coming from the leader of the Roman Catholic Church have the potential to shift debates about legal status of same-sex couples in nations around the globe and unsettle bishops worried that unions would threaten marriage. What we have to create is a civil union law. That way, they are legally covered, Francis said, reiterating his view that gay people are children of God. Quote, I stood up for that, end quote. So Francis has already drastically shifted the tone of the church on questions related to homosexuality, but he has done little on policy, and he has not changed the doctrine, leading a lot of people to say, well, are you just talking about it? So I felt, to me personally, I was like, this is definitely a step in the right direction for the leader of the Roman Catholic Church to make this stance. I felt like it's a move in the right direction. So, way to go, Pope. And I think this is good. I think that this is good that he's publicly talked about this. So, y'all, I don't even want to waste of your time. Okay, honey? Because I know who you came to see. All right? Let me tell you about this person. I am ecstatic about my special guest tonight. This woman, I mean, I could just go on and on like freelance, but I'm going to read what she sent me. Benir Pierre is an abundant strategist and intuitive life coach on a mission to help 1 million leaders transform their relationship with self, God, and money. An expert in wealth mindset, intuitive leadership, and revenue generation, Benir is passionate about supporting purpose driven experts in stepping into their divine calling to create massive world impact and multi generational wealth. Drawing from her education in social psychology and more than 15 years in the financial planning industry, combined with her spiritual intuitive gifts, Benir developed her signature AIM success system. And I'm so excited for her to tell us a little bit more about that. Through her courses, workshops, and consulting work, she has helped thousands of clients find spiritual, emotional, and financial freedom since 2011. And if you want to see those financial freedoms that she's produced, honey, it's in her email signature, it's on her stuff. Miss Thing is not playing with y'all who are out here really trying to do it. So without further ado, please welcome my special guest and friend, Miss Benir Pierre.
Hey, girlfriend, how you doing?
Hey, girlfriend. Hey. I just want to
Thank
thank
you
you
so much for
so.
having me.
I just want to thank you so much for being here and joining us on this good evening.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
So, before we jump into sharing our stories, I want to talk a little bit about numbers. A 2016 study from the journal AIDS and Behavior showed black gay men disproportionately experience homonegativity as compared to their white counterparts, resulting in greater rates of depression and social isolation. In addition to that, there was also a study that was saying that because of the fear and stigma of coming out in the black community, that we don't really know our numbers accurately. Darius Pryor, who is the community health navigator for the LGBTQ Life Center in Norfolk, says that's part of being a subset of the LGBTQ community. So for a gay white male looking at me, I'm still inferior, but I would get the same energy in my own community from a straight black male because he only sees me as gay. Now, I'm going to say that while I was trying to find statistics on the ladies in this category, it was almost impossible. But I did find this study that found that 58% of our LGBTQ community is made up of women. And of that, 13% of that 58% are black. And that's not even taking into consideration those that are have not reported, don't come out, are in the closet on the DL for both men and women. So I wanted to share that first, but Benir, I wanted to provide you an opportunity to introduce yourself. Who is Benir Pierre? What is AIM Success System? And then we're going to get into our coming out stories.
Absolutely. So I love those statistics that you just shared. They clearly did not take those from Atlanta. That's all I'm gonna say. So who am I? I think that always is such a loaded question. I am a walking contradiction. I am a unicorn, which is why you and I instantly connected. Because for the longest, I've been like, I am a manifestation unicorn. And that truly is, I'm the embodiment of all things. So I guess if I was to sum it up, honestly, I am a reflection of divinity. But what I do is I help folks secure their bag. So if that's what you want to know.
Yes.
Yes.
So talk to us a little bit about what in what is the AIM success system? How do you help people secure their bag?
Absolutely. So in my work, essentially, I work with purpose driven leaders. Most of my clients are coaches, speakers, and they are helping people step into their power in whatever capacity. So I work with a lot of business coaches, work with a lot of folks that are really helping people tap into their confidence, and I help them shift into that next level of impact. I work with people who have a calling that is so much greater than themselves, and a lot of times they're getting in their own way. And so the first thing that I help them do is align with abundance, which is the A in AIM. And so, really, a lot of that is wealth mindset, really getting to the root of your money trauma, getting clear on why you have the relationship with money that you do. A lot of that is personal development. I'm a firm believer that your relationship with anything outside of yourself is a reflection of your relationship with self. So, really helping them clear those things so that they are standing in their unicorn power, as you say. The second part of that is intuitive leadership. So, really helping leaders get to the cutting edge of their industry and stop doing what the business trends say you should do, stop doing what the gurus say you should do, but really tapping into your unique magic and leading from that place. And then finally, we monetize that. So for a lot of clients, that looks like scaling to massive impact. I help you really build out your signature programs and correctly price it, package it, and position it so that you're making the impact that you want while having the freedom and not, burnt out and overwhelmed working all hours of the night like these internet streets tell you you have to do.
I love that. I love that. And so, for those of you who are tuning in, I definitely invite you to check out www.benirpierre.com, where you can learn more about Benir as well as the packages and services that she offers. So, Benir, going right into it, let's just jump right in. And first, I'm going to take me another swig of my cocktail.
What you sipping on?
So it looks fancier than it is. This is just a Bud Light seltzer with a little juice in it for color. What do you got?
Honestly, something Bougie Bay made. I was just like, I need something that looks real good in a glass. So she said it's like apple something punch. It tastes good. That's all I know.
Boom. That's all we need. So, Benir, at what age did you know that, I'm a little different?
So I feel like that's a little loaded only because I really honestly don't remember a time when I wasn't. But I was molested when I was younger, and I was molested by a woman. And so for a long time, I suppressed it and tried to convince myself it wasn't true. But I remember being in middle school and having a crush on my best friend, and I pretended like, her name was Danielle, and I was like, oh yeah, I have a crush on this guy named Daniel. It's so coincidental that his name is close to yours. Or, I would be watching certain movies and rewind it when they show boobies. So I honestly don't remember a time that I wasn't attracted to women.
Okay, and that's very interesting because for me, I recall the very first time I remember being attracted to a boy, and that was at St. Domitilla School and in Hillside, Illinois, and I was in first grade. And I remember having a crush on a girl in the class. Her name was Vanessa. But then I met Larry, and then I remember feeling similar feelings for Larry that superseded what I felt for this little girl. And that
Vanessa
was like,
who?
huh?
I said, Vanessa who?
Right. Who is she? And so I that's the very first time looking back at it that I remembered. So was there a point, since there was a point that you kind of always knew, did you have to come out, or was this something that was just understood, or what was that process for you?
I absolutely had to come out because even though I knew, I was terrified that the world would know. And so, like I said, always had crushes. I had a crush on a girl at church, and I just knew I was going to hell. Tried to pray it away and all the things that we do. And I remember right before I came out when I was 21. And
Oh,
right
me
before I
too.
came out, there's something magical about that age. You like, I'm grown. I don't give a damn.
Yeah.
And so a friend of mine on my 21st birthday, actually, I had gotten my tongue pierced. And I used to test the waters because I secretly considered myself bi-curious for years. Really, as soon as I went to college and wasn't, at the church that I had grown up with, I figured I had enough anonymity, but I still didn't tell anyone that I considered myself bi-curious. It was just something that I said in my head. And truth was, I wasn't bi or curious. But on my 21st birthday, I had recently gotten my tongue pierced and I had a rainbow tongue piercing. And my friend was like, "Girl, why you got a rainbow tongue ring? You gay?" And I got so mad. I was like, "Hell no, I'm not gay." And a week later, I came out.
Okay, okay. So, what was that coming out experience like? And I'm assuming. Stop. Let's go back. Tell us a little bit about your upbringing, because I want to set this in context. So, what did your upbringing? What did baby Paneer? What did that look like?
Baby Benir was hiding all of who she was. I grew up um, fat, black, gay, and I did everything I could to shrink and try to fit into everybody's box. And so, whatever that box was, I was the smart black kid, but I dumbed myself down around those that intimidated. And so, Baby Veneer was trying her damnedest to hide all this magic and light. I grew up in the church. I grew up Kojic actually. And so, we're talking skirts down to your ankles, no earrings, big. And I was in the choir. I led the praise dance team. I've led Sunday school. I was on pastor's aid, like all of the things. So, you wear lipstick and you're a Jezebel. And so Baby Veneer also dealt with a lot of self condemnation and internalized homophobia, internalized hatred of all that I was, really.
So,
So,
what was the
what was the
family
family
dynamic
dynamic
when you
when
came
you
out?
came?
Like, what did your family say? What was their reaction?
So actually, so my mom, she had left the church. I went to church with my grandmother. My mom had already left the church. And back then I just knew, I was like, oh Lord, she is not saved. Jesus, please get her together. But she just had her awakening before I did because she realized God was so much bigger than the church. And a lot of the um, hypocrisy that we see in the church, she just was not here for it. So my mom's reaction was, congratulations on discovering who you are. But she also asked if I was gay when I was in middle school. And when I first had like a little piece of a boyfriend or something in college, she was like, "Oh, girl, we're glad because I was just convinced you were gay." So mama knew. And my grandmother, on the other hand, and that part of the family, funny enough, of course, they thought I was a heathen and all of the things that you would assume. But I'm laughing because the first time they met anyone that I dated, she was older than me. And and she was masculine of center. They just convinced themselves that she turned me out. And I'm like, Lord, if you knew,
Right. And I think
I'm
that
going to
that
turn her out.
well, I think that that's a common theme. So I don't know if you know. Well, no, I know you know because I've shared it with you. But so me and my sister are both gay, and so for a single mom, that was a lot, especially because I mean, baby, I'm not very masculine. I'm me. But on that spectrum, honey, I'm a little bit this way. And then, my sister, on the other hand, she is a little bit more masculine. And so it definitely, I think it played with my mother's psyche a little bit because it's like I'm gay and then my sister's gay. And my mom recently, disclosed on one of my episodes that she, in her own way, blamed me for my sister coming
Mhm.
out. Like it was something that because I was gay, I made it okay for her to be gay. And so it was very interesting for me to hear that perspective from my mother. But what was interesting is my sister, right in that time, right before she came out to me, in terms of letting me see what was happening, she was very mean to me. And
Mhm.
like she was very hurtful. And I remember that summer, like my mom just literally kind of dropped her off at my apartment and was like, she's living with you this summer. And, me, I was 20. And so I was, still figuring my things out. And so we were put in this position where it's like we're living together now. And I remember her saying some hurtful things to me. And I say that not to, make her look bad, but I say that because she was going through something in her own life that didn't allow her to align with who I was. So, did you have someone else in your family that was gay or someone else that like you could have turned to?
So definitely nobody in my family, but I did have a few church friends, and I'll get into that in just one second. But I want to address something you said about, her path where she was mean and didn't accept herself and reflected that. So I never really had any close gay friends. I certainly wasn't mean to anyone who was gay per se. But when I tell you, I used to be terrified of gay men because I knew who I was.
Right.
And, I grew up in Seattle. And so when I would take the bus to the community college, I would always see all of these gay guys. We were headed towards Broadway. So, of course, they were just there in all of their flamboyance. And it was like, you know what? Let me not ever have a gay friend because I know the day, like I had this story in my head, the day that I have a gay friend, they gonna turn me out. Just being an association, and I'm gonna tell you, if that's the story that you believe, and you don't like gay folks because you think they're gonna turn you out, look in the mirror, you're gay.
Right. And yeah, I totally agree with you. So you mentioned you had some church friends that
Yeah.
you were, and I find that's very interesting because like in my church experience, my maternal grandmother was our pastor.
Mhm.
My mom's brother was the associate pastor. My mom's sister and her husband were the assistant. I mean, they have all these levels of pastoral stuff, and also the worship leaders. And so for me, my church experience was very different than the Kojic experience because my church had 8 pews in it. And on 6 of them pews was people I shared blood with.
Mhm.
And so for me, I couldn't even really find refuge at all in the church because everyone was related to me.
Mhm.
So, what was your experience growing up in the Kojic church, knowing that, hey, I'm gay, yeah?
I mean, like I said, it was just a lot of internalized hatred and really just hiding. So I won't necessarily say there was some internalized hatred, but I don't know if that part was because I was gay. Because I was always the one who was like, but why are gay people bad? I mean, but is that actually what it means? Like, I was always the one questioning it, not really feeling whatever this is you're spewing. But I actually left the Kojic church when I was 16 and really started on my path to finding God. And so when I came out, I was already out of Seattle. I went to college in DC. So I was already living in DC. So I had a freedom that I didn't really have. But I still wasn't out, and I became friends with two guys who are still my brothers to this day. And Funny enough, one was the nephew of the pastor. And so they would always hang out there. And I was that church girl who was always at the pastor's house, who was always like, listen, I was indoctrinated. And so they would come hang out and they were like, oh, we just got back from the skating rink. We just got back from whatever. What? You just got back from Bible study? Why you boring? And so I started hanging out with them and it was like, oh shit. Here we go. And so I remember right before I came out, a few months before I came out, my heart mom, her father passed away. And so I was doing sign language at the funeral, and the unspoken of cousin that, everyone just kind of swept to the side because she was lesbian and she was that one you just don't talk about. You don't know she comes with her wife every holiday, but just, don't talk to her and you won't turn gay. And so she was there with her friends and had mentioned, who's that gay girl on the pulpit signing? And I was not out. I was not like, yeah. And so I didn't find this out till later. So then, a few months later, hanging out with the friends from church, and I ended up having this dream that really for me was my coming out story. I am intuitive, and that was the turning point. And so I woke up from the dream, and essentially in the dream, I had a fiance who was a woman, and she was so upset because I was afraid to share our love. And my whole thing was, but they're going to judge me. And the message in the dream was, if they're your friends, they won't judge you. And I woke up and I was like, oh shit, I'm gay. And so I reached out to one of the friends from church, and I had gotten the number for the cousin that I'd seen at the funeral, had never spoken with her, but I reached out to her as well. And when they both called me back, they already knew I was calling to come out. They were like, we were just waiting for you to say it, honey. We knew.
Wow, wow. And so can you tell us what you meant by heart mom?
Yes. So my mom and I had some difficulties. And so I believe that family is not only your biological family, but it's also the family that you take into your heart. So this was actually one of my pastors over the years. So she and her husband were my heart parents for quite some time.
Wow, wow. So let me ask you, have you ever encountered like a public display of discrimination for being black and gay or black or gay? And if so, what was that like?
So a public display against me or against someone else?
Well, just it's something that you've witnessed.
I mean, I've definitely heard people talk about Black folks like somehow, if you are articulate or something, like you are a different type of Black person. So they feel like they can say certain things. And it's like, no, that's still kinfolk. Personally, I can't think of so acts of discrimination, not necessarily, but certainly people talking mess about gay folks and whatever because they don't realize who's sitting amongst them 1000%. And to be quite honest, at that time, I wasn't standing in my power. And so often I just was quiet. I certainly never agreed, but I didn't always advocate for myself or others.
Right.
But thank God I'm coming out.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And see, for me is and my experience was completely different. So I I went to Catholic or went to Catholic elementary school, Catholic high school. My high school was not only Catholic but all boys. So it was very much testosterone central, but it was like testosterone with a bunch of people who didn't know what it was. So,
Mhm.
like I remember people fighting for no reason. Like I remember this one fight. I mean, whatever, but like it was just a lot of new emotions and stuff. And I remember specifically in that space feeling like really scared. But what was interesting about it is the white people. Now, I got picked on by white, black, Latin, whatever. But in terms of my femininity or in terms of me being a little bit different, I always felt more comfortable around people who weren't black. And it was all, and like, even from, elementary school up into high school and college. And I mean, part of that was just elementary school. I had really little interaction with other black people. I was one of two black kids in my class from 5th grade to 8th grade. And then I went to high school that was a lot more culturally mixed. And so it literally was a culture shock for me. But I remember the way my heart would tense up, like if there was a bunch of black kids in the area, or you know what I'm saying? Like it would make my heart just like, oh my God, I'm really nervous, walk straight up, like all of those things. And it wasn't until later in life that I began feeling those same things for being black from like white folks. And so I find that there is a duality that we walk, and I'm speaking specifically to the black gay experience, that is kind of incomprehensible. There's a quote from a movie Trade that says, "Being a black man in America is a reality that will never be justified. So imagine being a black gay man." And the first time I heard that, I was like, why does my reality need to be justified?
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? So, was there ever a point to you where, in this coming out and getting to know yourself, that it just clicked like, I don't need to be justified? Like, I'm good.
So it's so funny because I actually need to change my answer because I think part of it is a lot of things I honestly feel like were a lifetime ago. I mentioned I grew up in Seattle, absolutely experienced discrimination for being a Black girl. I got into fights weekly with kids calling me out of my name but like as an adult, I can't really think of too much discrimination in that way, but I realized that again, you asked like what baby Benir did, and I said she shrunk. For a long time, that's what adult Benir did. And I worked in financial planning with a bunch of old white Republican men, and so I think that I had a really good way of just flowing under the radar. So I didn't necessarily identify with my blackness or my gayness. Definitely was not out. I was the queen of gender neutral pronouns. I remember one time I was telling a boss about a date. And I was like, "Oh yeah, they'll be here to pick me up at 6." And she's like, "They? Are you Polly?" And I'm like, "Nope, I'm just in the closet." Or thinking I am, obviously. She's like, "Whatever, girl. We all know you are fooling only yourself." Um,
Right.
but I think for me, there was so much shrinking and hiding that honestly, my coming out as gay, even though I came out at 21, and anyone close to me, any friend, anything like that, they know who's important to me. But publicly, I don't think that's ever something that I necessarily wore as part of my identity. Um, and I think it was easier because I am feminine of center, and so most people just assume all the things they want to assume about me, and for a very long time I just let them. So they think I'm straight. Yep, whole beautiful ass fiance next to me, but sure.
Wow. Well, we have a question that came through on my email,
Mhm.
from Christopher B. And it says, "Have either of you ever been in an interracial relationship, and how did that affect the dynamic?" So I'll start by saying almost all of my relationships have been interracial. And that is where I've seen the most blatant, I would say, displays of discrimination. Like my ex husband and I would like walk down like we would be on Fremont or whatever, and I'm not one of those people that like hides affection. And so like we'd be walking down and like you'd see these people kind of looking, but it was almost like they weren't necessarily looking because it was two men holding hands, but it was like because it was a black guy and a white guy. And so I definitely feel like it made a difference because it even made my ex husband more aware of our surroundings. So, like, when like police would be around or we would be in that, like, he would get like hyper like anxious, right? Because of me. And so yeah, so to answer your question, Christopher B, yes, I've been in an interracial relationship. I'm in an I'm in an interracial relationship now also. And so I think as a black man, we're trained to kind of be very militant about things, even subconsciously. So I'm always scoping out everything. Like when I go to a restaurant with my boyfriend, I'm looking at where are the exits, if there's a window that we can jump out of, you know what I mean? Like, and it's just one of those things that is ingrained in me. So I feel like yes, it's made a difference because I've experienced those types of interactions. So, what about you, Benir? Have you ever been in an interracial relationship, and did that change your dynamic?
So I have dated outside of my race, but I've never been in a relationship outside of my race. But it's so interesting that you talk about this need to look for the exits and really check in for safety. While I haven't had that because of dating someone outside of my race, that is 1000% my experience with my fiance. And it's the first time I've ever had that experience. I always dated masculine center women. And so this is the first time that I'm in a serious relationship with someone who is, outside looking in. People would consider her a femme, but we're just two beautiful women. But that is something that I'm very hyper aware of, especially when I'm in groups of men. Really in the general public, I don't feel that. But whenever we are around large groups of men, that's something that I'm very hyper aware of because usually they blatantly hit on one or, both of us. And you have to really be mindful of what can I say, what can I not say, because saying this is my woman, they don't care, especially because you're feminine. So
Right,
I
because
find
then they want
women
both of you.
exactly, and they like when I tell you so damn disrespectful, and so then it's a matter of is it safe for me to say no?
Wow. Wow.
Mhm.
That even opened up a whole nother dynamic to me that I've never even thought of. And I'll tell you, I feel very similarly when I'm in groups of men.
Mhm.
It's almost like, okay, what is going to be said? Because I mean, I don't hide, like, I'm not one of those people that can hide anything. Like, people know I'm gay from the moment I walk into the room, whether it's because the way that I'm walking, the way that I talk, I speak with my hands, I'm very expressive. And so that's something that over like probably the last 4 or 5 years that I've really had to sit with and become super comfortable with because when I come into the room, you go know what's the tea. Like it ain't no like there's no hiding that. And so I get that because I'm super aware of that when I'm in there. Um, Ezra says, I can relate. I don't like being objectified and I stand in my power. And then Monica says, yeah, my wife and I experience that as well when we go out together. Men don't care that we're together or ask stupid questions. And
Mhm.
and so
Oh,
I
stupid questions.
and the thing is, so like I guess I've not seen maybe this part because like I said, my sister is a little I don't know. She considers herself a stud. I don't know what the politically correct term is. My sister is a beautiful woman, but she is, to me, what I would consider more masculine. And so her interactions have been extremely different. Like, I've seen people react or interact with her as if she was a man.
Hmm.
And
And I
do you know what
think
I'm?
that, sorry, I didn't
No,
mean to
go,
cut
no,
you off, but I
no,
think
go
that's
ahead.
like the crazy thing because when I dated women who were masculine of center, then they treated them like they're men, though clearly they are women. But now it's the complete opposite. And it's, she talked about the stupid questions people ask. Of course, we still get asked, who's the man? And it's like, really?
And the thing is, I get asked that as a
Hmm.
cisgendered black gay male. I get asked that as well. And it's crazy that over the course of all of these years that these questions are still being asked. Like it's crazy to me. But really quick, I want to shift gears because me and you have a common experience in the church, and I feel that it's important to really get that out there. One, because I believe that there's some people that may be watching that are still in the church, and struggling with reconciling who they are with their faith, but also those who have left the church and have become completely jaded to any concept of spirituality
Yeah.
because of that. So, my question to you, Benir, becomes, well, there's two. The first question is, how had being in the church, how did that damage you? Like looking
Woo!
like looking back at, yeah, you were on the praise dance team and pastor's aide and everything, but just being in that space, how did that damage self?
You trying to get me in trouble with the motherboard, Lord Jesus. So, I would say definitely the first thing was trying to cut away pieces of me, feeling like I could only be one expression of me. I remember, again, I grew up in Kojic, couldn't wear pants, very, very strict. And I saw some of the church members wearing pants, and they had just gotten back from the movie theater. And I was told during new member orientation, you could not go to the movies. And so, like, there was just so much judgment that I had, and things that, like, I just felt like I could not live. And I was very young. Like I said, I left when I was 16. So I'm in middle school, high school, and absolutely felt like, I didn't go to any dances. I didn't go to the sports games, anything, because if it wasn't church, if it wasn't school, if it wasn't work, I didn't need it. All I need is Jesus. And so I think damage is a little strong for me simply because I don't know. It definitely fractured me. But I look at myself like kintsugi. So, I just poured a little gold and put it together. But I definitely had to heal and I had to come back to myself. I think, honestly, the biggest thing that was damaged was my relationship with God because for so long I thought that God was external and I had a fear based relationship with God and thought that, God was this big guy who sat in the sky with a chalkboard, and every single time that I did something I wasn't supposed to do, marked it on the chalkboard, and then if I repented in time, he will wipe it clean. But as soon as I did something else, and so I lived in this constant state of fear and this constant state of I am not enough. I am not worthy. I am nothing but dust, and to dust I shall return. And
Right.
all of these things that they tell you, I adopted that as my identity, as opposed to realizing that I am a reflection of divinity. I am a godlet.
Yeah, you are 100%. 100%. And so I'm going to pose this next question to you as I retrieve my computer charger that's about to go dead so we don't lose the broadcast. So, conversely, Benir, how did your relationship or your experience in the church, how did that heal you?
Hmm. So I think honestly, it's probably going to be a similar answer, but I had to come back to me and I had to recognize myself as a reflection of God And part of that for me um, really was in the stripping away. And so I'm grateful for the foundation. I'm grateful for the religion, which even after I shed that, I was then able to find relationship. I'm grateful for the lessons, everything that I know about God's promises, everything that I know about my power, everything that I know about our ability to create, and everything that I teach, manifestation, everything comes from my relationship with God, which definitely was formed in the church. So I think while there were some things that were harmful, I needed that experience to connect with the source that's greater than me. And through that, I have now been able to evolve into this relationship that I now have with
And I think for
God.
me, oh wait, we have a comment from Adrian. So really quick, Adrian is on my Council of Gunkles, and if you do not know what that is, the Council of Gunkles is a group of me and three of my friends who are all gay men, and we are like the View. We have varying opinions. We are in various stages of our lives. But we come together on the last Wednesday of every month and we dish and we talk about the issues. So, Adrian says the church was a bigger bully than those in the world. My family were the sinners that the church demonized. It's a shame when you feel loved by the demons the church tried to keep you from and bullied by the ones who preach love. I, baby, I'm gonna tell you, and that for me was my experience. Like I talk all the time that I believe that knowingly or unknowingly, our families can truly be our first bullies. From your uncle saying, "Why are you holding your wrist like this? Why are you walking so fast?" To your cousin saying, "Oh, you're soft. You're a pussy. You're a punk. You're, all of these things, And so it's interesting for me that I looked at that, like looking back, like, damn, some people in my family were literally my first bullies and did not even know it. So, speaking on the topic of bullying, what was how did bullying play a part in your story, whether that have been in school or by family or colleagues?
Hear me when I say this. I'm an Aries, so I can't ever say I was bullied. People tried me and then quickly learned not to. So, that was my experience. I did fight a lot when I was younger. And I think part of that, so I mean, there definitely were people who tried, but they only needed to try once.
And that's funny because Adrian, his slogan is "Try Jesus, not me."
Adrian is my uncle. Okay,
Yeah,
try
okay.
Jesus, not me. Yes.
So and that oh and then Ezra says bringing that Aries energy. I want to shout Ezra out also. He is a really good friend of mine, and we connected on social media. And he has a podcast called The Sassy Medium. He does spiritual work, and I'm so excited to join his podcast next week. So Benir, I feel like we literally could make this like a 3 hour special, kind of chopped up.
Well,
But what I want to say now, you touched on something earlier that I feel like as gay folks and queer folks that the sense of family is something that's so huge for us. Even going back into the 80s when we had houses and our families, that kind of thing. So what does your oh wait, hold on. I feel like I meant to be here to experience Benir. I
oh my
love that. I love that. Ezra, please connect with her. I'm gonna make sure that you guys connect. Because he actually lives in the Pacific Northwest, so he gets it.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
no, that's my bestie. That's another girlfriend. Okay.
yeah, for sure. Um, and I totally lost my train of thought, but that's okay. So I'm gonna see if I can catch it real
We're
quick.
talking about family, the importance of
Oh yeah,
family.
thank you. So, what does your family, and I call it my family, my friends and family, what does your support system, what does that look like today?
I have an amazing group of folks of all walks of life, straight folks, gay folks. Honestly, I feel like if you are a reflection of the love that I am, of the divinity that I am, you're welcome. And so, even at our engagement party, it definitely was a really nice mix of folks.
I love that. I love that. I find for me is as a gay man, I felt like I was always running from something or
Mm.
running to something. And for me, it was always that sense of family. And I remember when my mom started coming around, into kind of who I was becoming, it was a little bit of a shock to her because me personally, and I want to be careful how I say this because I definitely don't want to offend anyone, but in my circle, the way that we kind of relate to each other was referring to everything in the feminine. So it's like she, her, like it's all of that. Like, and so I remember like my mom being around and she told my friend Steven, who is she? And she's like, Norman. And that was just kind of the way that we talked to each other. But what's interesting is as we transition to an episode that I had recently that had a lesbian cast, there seems to be a huge divide between lesbians and gay folks. And I'll say, let me clarify between lesbian women and gay men. And what was so astonishing about that to me was I'm all into like documentaries and I'm all into research, and so I was recently watched the show Pose, which I'm sure everyone watched, but at the forefront of the movements you definitely had your black and brown trans women, but you also had the lesbian folks right there with ACT UP, marching, advocating for gay men, advocating for all of these things. So, my question is in your experience or in your opinion, what can we do? And I'm talking about me and you
Mhm.
as a gay black man, as a gay black woman, to help bridge that divide between the L's and the G's.
Mhm. So, I mean, I think it's conversations like this, honestly. And you are absolutely right. Now, these days, I really don't feel like I have a whole lot of connection in the community just because we recently moved. And so, I'm just kind of out here being me. But back in the day, most of my friends were actually gay men. Well, after I got over that I can't be friends with gay men. Most
Right,
of
right,
my
right.
friends were gay men. And I think that a large part of that, Malcolm X said that the most disrespected person in the world is the black woman. So at the end of the day, we're still women. And so it's still men and women. And I think that's what it is. I don't think it's anything about gay versus lesbian. I think it's just that women are often at the forefront of activism and often at the forefront of change, but don't really get the recognition and respect that we deserve in those spaces. So, unfortunately, and I think it's so interesting because then we also have this conversation that black men are the white men of black folks. I don't know if you've ever heard that,
Oh,
but like
oh yeah.
this idea, but again, I think it's just the idea of like men and women, and it's 2020 and we still are fighting that fight to be seen as equals and to be recognized for our contributions.
And you know what's interesting, Benir, that you did is you really simplified that. And for the first time, it actually makes sense to me. I've been doing this show for quite some time. I've been gay. I'd like to feel, I know my whole life, but I've been out since I was 21. But I always struggled to understand that divide. I recently, had an episode with lesbian women, and they expressed like, there's not, and here in Vegas, like there's not a place for lesbians to go. Lesbians feel left out when they go to the gay bars and all of these other things. And you just broke it down to a level. It's men and women.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to say that leaves me speechless because that disgusts me. It disgusts me that within our sub community of being LGBTQ plus, that we further
Yeah.
bring that outside mentality within our group. And I'm telling you, Benir, in all of my years, I never simplified it to that level. I'm always looking at lesbian and gay, but like you said, it's literally men and women. Whew, Jesus, we're gonna have a part two.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, we're gonna have a part two. So as we begin to wrap it up for the evening, Benir, I always like to invite my special guest to speak to that person that's looking at you that's saying, "Oh my gosh, I look at Benir, I want to have that courage. I'm just not there yet." Oh my, that younger person that is like, "How is that even possible? How is it possible for me to be out and not just out, but thriving and an entrepreneur?" I want to give you the floor and I want you to speak directly to the heart of that person.
So I recently shared something that I actually think really speaks the truth of this story. That first off, anything you recognize in me, you recognize it in me because you already have it in you. So there is no courage, there's no power, there is no freedom that I have that you don't have access to. And so, like I said earlier, it really is about coming back to you. And so I encourage you to define yourself for yourself outside of the labels, outside of who society tells you that you're supposed to be, outside of what you're told you can and can't do. We hold on to all of these stories and put them in our bags, and half the time the luggage isn't even ours. And so come back to you. Anything that you are looking at us saying, "I wish I could be like that," baby, you already have it in you. So just come back to you.
I love that. Come back to you. Benir, I have to say that this conversation has definitely ignited some things within me. And I am so grateful to have been able to share this experience and this conversation with you because it's important for us to share our experiences, not just for those who are gay and black, but for those who have a desire to know what this might look like. There is a duality that we walk every single day that I feel like you just can't understand. Like, as much as I say it, and as a gay man, I look at white gay men and I'm like, y'all have it easy. And then I look at, straight black men and I will never say that the black man has it easy. But what I will say is that coming from white gay men and straight black men, there is a duality that you have to kind of walk between both groups. And it's exhausting. It is tiring. And I've had enough, just it plainly put. So I thank you for being here to share your story. Again, y'all, this is my special guest, Benir Pierre. She is an aim strategist. Now we say, okay, aim, you got to get in position. When you're aiming something, you've got to get in position, meaning you've got to position your abundance, you need to position your intuition, and you've definitely got to position your money. So if you are interested to connect with my girlfriend, this beautiful badass, I invite you to visit www.benirpierre.com. And before we sign off, I just want to make sure we have no other comments. Oh my goodness. Okay, Adrian says, tell the truth and shame the devil. He also, in this scenario, gay black men still struggle with the toxic masculinity that we were taught. 100%. And so I have officially decided that there will be a part two of this in November, because I feel like there's so much more to flesh out. And if you watching are interested in being a guest on What's the LGBT, please email me at norman@overthetopliving.com or send me a direct message. Oh, Monica, I love Benir. Yes, I do too. And thank you, Monica, so much for tuning in. So, y'all, I'm going to say my piece in terms of the person that's looking at me. I want to tell you, first of all, you're the shit. Okay? Off top, you're the baddest. As someone called me yesterday, said I was a baddie. I didn't even know that was like a term, but you're a baddie. You are the shit, right? The reason why people want you to mute your voice and to hide your story is because they don't want to acknowledge their villain part in your story. So by you keeping your story quiet, it keeps them looking in the way that they want to look. And I've seen this firsthand. Look at, and I call them the closeters. And you don't have to be LGBTQ to have a closeter. A closeter is that person that wants to shut you up, keep you in that closet, whether that be a mental closet, physical closet, emotional closet, right? So understand that that in and of itself tells you, my friend, that there is power in the story that you're going to share. Right? Because let me tell you something, babies. If they did it to you, you now own it. And it's part of your story. Like I tell people all the time, if you slap me, you slap me. And I'm going to tell everyone that you did. And so I encourage you to reach out to me, reach out to Benir if you need someone that needs to be that ear for you, because I'm telling you, there is a power in your story. And like I tell people every time, is your story is yet but a page in someone else's survival guide. There is something that has happened to you in your story that could be literally a matter of life or death to someone else. So I want you to recognize that awesomeness, that beautiful uniqueness, that unicorn power that you possess, that thing that you were taught was bad, that thing that you taught was ugly or horrible. I want you to find the beauty in that and share that with the world. Again, friends, you already know who it is, but I don't mind giving you a reminder. It's your best friend, your good Judy, your next door neighbor, your niece, your nephew, your cousin, your great auntie, and recently I have become a gunkle. Please stay tuned. Next Wednesday, we reconvene the Council of Gunkles right here on What's the LGBT with Gunkle Adrian, Gunkle Brian, Gunkle Norman, and Gunkle Daniel right here on What's the LGBT at 7 p.m. Pacific. Benir, I appreciate you. I love on you. You are my girlfriend, my spirit animal, and I'm so happy that you were able to join us tonight. All right, friends, I tell you all the time, you're the shit. Get up and act like it.